pessoal, tudo bem? Aqui é Roberto Alvarez fazendo uma entrevista internacional para o Startupi. Eu estou aqui com o Clarence, que está baseado na Austrália, e a gente vai conversar um pouquinho sobre tecnologia, startups, inovação, empreendedorismo na Ásia, Austrália, Sudeste da Ásia, tá bom? Eu vou passar para o inglês para a gente conversar com o Clarence. Clarence, it's great to have you here. Thank you so much for being with us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah. So, Clarence, I have just introduced you to Startupi, let's say to our audience at Startupi. And the idea for the conversation is really to talk about entrepreneurship and I would say the startups ecosystem in Asia and in Australia. Yeah, you've been active in that space from different angles. Yeah, as an investor, as a professor, as a thinker, as a doer, as a maker. So you have started up companies, you have invested in different companies. So what's the case for entrepreneurship in Australia at this moment? What's going on? What are the trends? In which kind of thing are you involved on?
Okay. Well, I think initially I was involved in the areas that I'm related in, obviously in the ICT area. In particular, the telecommunication area, where I basically came up with a solution for sending a non-repudiated proof of receipt for SMS. See, at the moment, if you send an SMS message, there's two problems. One, you don't know who the person really is. And the second problem is you don't know whether the person actually read your message. So we actually solved the two problems using any mobile phones. And it's been used by almost all the HIV or communicable disease clinic in Australia, UK, and Ireland and so forth, where, it's very important that the doctor knows that the patient received the message and the message didn't go to a wrong number with their results, medical results and so forth. But that was my kind of foray into the telecommunication entrepreneurship area, and then since then I've evolved into more an angel investor. So I'm a founding member of the Gold Coast Angels. I've been living on the Gold Coast of Australia for the last 21 years, and I've invested in various companies from biotech to just hardware devices. I mean, not computer devices, but actual hardware drills. And to robotic companies here. So just to give you a scenario of how entrepreneurship has kind of evolved here. Australia has always been very innovative. It's a very small country, but because because it's a small country and because they had to import almost all their day-to-day use tools and so on, they became very, very innovative to try and find solutions for their own stuff. I don't know whether you know, like lawnmower and so many different things were actually invented in Australia. And as you know, the whole disruptive technology is taking place at the moment, especially even in the car industry. So Australia used to, still manufacture cars here, but General Motors has announced they're pulling out, and and Ford is pulling out. So but the thing is, the argument is, we have to find jobs for these people who are displaced and so forth. And I think one of the areas that and the skill that should be taught to these people is entrepreneurial skills, because I think the days of going to a good university, getting good results, getting a great job in a big company is kind of over. Because if you can be replaced by a machine, you will be replaced.
And tell me something, can entrepreneurial skills be taught?
I think so. I myself don't really want to be an entrepreneur, especially after going to Singularity when I had David Rose, our faculty advisor then for entrepreneurship. He said that to be an entrepreneur, you need to have the A-hole gene. I don't want to have the A-hole gene. I mean, a real entrepreneur, right, doesn't really need, to understand the technology or even have any real technical skills. You give it any business, they will turn it around and make it commercializable and make money out of it. And you really have a thick skin and have the drive to do it. But I think the skill, but then you see that's the difference between entrepreneurs and innovators, right? Most of the time, they are not the same people. If they are the same people, fantastic. If an innovator is also an entrepreneur, that's the best mix you can have as an investor. But from my experience, they are quite separate category of people, right? Entrepreneur can make anything work. They don't really care about the underlying technology. The problem with innovators sometimes is that they're so in love with
With
their
technology.
technology or their idea, they cannot break off the mold. They cannot pivot. They just won't. I mean, some people say that's good. That you're persistent. Some people see it as stubbornness. So I mean, like as I mean, Kodak invented the digital camera,
Yeah.
but they refuse to see the fact that it is a disruptive technology, and they themselves were destroyed, right, by it. So the thing is that I actually mentor a lot of these companies, and what really inspired me, about just before I went to Singularity, a few years, was 4 years ago now, I was given a Smart State Fellowship by the Australian government here to basically be an entrepreneur residence fellow to help the university and the companies work together.
In different. So just two questions here, Clarence. First, a comment. When we met in California, really briefly, but something that caught my attention is that to me it seemed that you are someone who embodies the two sides of the thing. Yeah, you have technical background, you have developed really technology, and you have this really entrepreneurial spirit. You want to engage with people to do different things. Yeah, and so this is, and how is that, and what kind of role have you been playing? As you said, you got that you became an entrepreneur in residence. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what are you doing in that capacity now to really promote tech entrepreneurship and to bridge those two sides?
Okay. It came twofold. One was basically getting the university academics here to understand, that they can commercialize whatever they have discovered in their research. Because I had colleagues of mine who come to me after they have published a paper saying, "Oh my goodness, my algorithm is so well accepted by the academic community. I'd like to file a patent." And then you and I know that once you have published something with
Yeah.
which is not under an NDA,
It's
you can
gone.
no longer you cannot they don't understand this. So I actually had to the first step was running a workshop to educate them about IP protection and commercialization and so forth. Then the second step was basically showing them how they can get funding and how they can be rewarded. Now you asked me the question about the difference between like how's the entrepreneur scene here. From the university side, it's always been big money, like government throwing a lot of money, and then they get a good vaccine or something, and they file a patent, and then they do the big commercialize the old way. They don't have the nimble, fast, small startup companies within the university, and one of the reasons for that is because in Australia, and I think most of the British Commonwealth system universities, the academics get promoted based on number of publications they have, not the number of patents they hold or commercialization results. And on the other, and one of the other point too is that the universities here, they own anywhere from 25 to 100% of the IP developed by their academics. So there's no real incentive for the academics to do that. While in US, right, I mean, only 9 months of your salary is paid by the university. The other 3 months you have to go and find your own funding or do some commercialization work or whatever. But not here, you see. So here, once you become a tenured or confirmed professor, nobody can really, it's very hard to sack you and so on. So that's why there's no real incentive for people to want to go and be an entrepreneur.
But you have a different story, because in how many companies have you personally invested?
I think about 10,
Okay.
maybe a little more at the moment. Yeah. So I mentor them and connect them wherever I can.
So you transitioned in some way from, let's say, you have a strong academic background, but you really transitioned into becoming, let's say, a really investor in some way, and really allocating capital to make the ecosystem move forward, really?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, one of the reasons, for example, I mean, coming back to the entrepreneurship and residence program, one of the workshops that I ran was how to pitch. In fact, that was how I found out about Singularity, because I told you I was a founding member of the Gold Coast Angels, and we were using a software called Angel Soft, which is now Gust, founded by David Rose. And
Yes.
he allowed me to use his video, a one-time use of his video of how to pitch at Singularity that he given. And I was so impressed with it. I found out more about Singularity and applied to it, and luckily I got in. But in the same workshop, we actually ran a competition to kind of find some rough diamonds in the rough in the Gold Coast area. And there was this plumber that essentially had an idea about how to make a tool to cut pipes from the inside out instead of using an angle grinder, which if you hit the concrete, you hit your eye, you go blind. So this one you just put to a drill and you cut it on. And he was a plumber, all right, and he had this great idea. He created a minimum viable product of the tool, but he never basically he have any experience in pitching and so on. And it was amazing to see that he came second, at the competition. And on top of that, in less than 12, 18 months, his product is now in the market, and I actually invested in the company. That was really interesting to see how a person with no background in entrepreneurship could actually see a product from ideation to actual commercialization in less than 12 to 18 months. So that's an example of a company that's not really high tech, but the fact that what I did actually made sense and actually counted for something. So a lot of satisfaction in seeing things like that.
And
Yeah, go ahead.
now, and in those 10 companies, let's say, in which kind of areas, technologies, or applications are they focused?
Um, Whole different area, but some things that I actually have interest in or it actually have an impact on me. Another company is called Attritive Relief Plus. I play a lot of badminton, and I had some really severe osteoarthritis of my knees for a while before I went to Singularity. And this company was in the innovation center, and they were looking for funding to finish the clinical tree testing of their cream, which is actually they have a patent on, which is made out of a herbal and tannic acid combination. And apparently, it not only kind of alleviate the pain, but it kind of seemed to cure it. And they needed money to finish the clinical tree testing. So I said, okay, give this cream to me. I'll try it if it works. Because my doctor told me, like, you're too young to have a knee operation. So just live with the pain. I said, what do you mean live with the pain? He said, oh, just take, drugs, NSAID, Voltaren, Nurofen, ibuprofen, and stuff like that. And I said, well, that's not a solution. So I tried this cream and I was at Singularity. I put it on 3 times a day for 3 months and they actually fixed it. So I invested in them. So that's a personal one. Others is like Grass Ads is a company in robotics, and I told you what part of my background was in robotics, so really interested me. They use robots to put all the signs or advertisement on the grass. In the old days, if you want to have an advertisement of a football field, you had to get a stencil made and all the sponsors' name. And one of the sponsor pulled out, then you got to make another stencil and then
Yeah.
paint it in. Now, all you do is upload this program to this robot. The robot will go and draw the whole thing out for you, and it looks like it's 3D, coming out. So it's an amazing product. I mean, they have the paint apparently is also good for the grass because Australia has got very strict environmental rules, obviously. So they're doing all the golf course, the lawn bowls, and all the football fields and so forth. They're looking to expand. So that's where I think Brazil might be a fantastic, or South America is a fantastic market for this product, especially she's going to have the World Cup and everything else out there, the Olympic Games and all that. I would definitely love to connect more with entrepreneurs in your part of the world, because I think there's some really cool technology from over here that we can bring across over there.
Yeah, and if for those who could be interested in connecting with you, what should they do?
Email me, or I have a holding company that I put some of the companies I've invested in, and if they're interested, happy to give them a link and so on, and I'll probably email to you later on so you can let them know if you like. And then as I said, there are some really really good companies in Australia. The problem is there isn't enough venture funds out here.
Really?
And yeah, it's a very sad thing, you must understand that in Australia, the biggest money earner for Australia is still mining and food and agriculture, right? So most of these companies then leave the shores of Australia to go to US, all right, and or some of them just basically get wind down and get bought out. Yeah.
Now, in that respect, there's, let's say, similarities with Brazil in terms of mining and food production. Brazil is let's say, a rich country in terms of natural resources. Yeah. So we've been really expanding food production and, let's say, expanding the production of different minerals. Yeah. And haven't you having to seen startups being created in that space, or innovative startups being created in that space in Australia, let's say to supply the needs or the food industry, or food startups, or to supply the needs of the mining industry, is that kind of thing happening? I think that this is the some way potential connections that Brazil and Australia could have, is to bridge innovative companies in that space.
Yeah, but this is the same problem we have. Like we talk about Korea just now, about how they have like big corporations. The big corporations dominate the scene, and to penetrate into those kind of, because they're so big, they probably have their own bodies to do it, or they fund a government or university body to work with them, and it kind of crowd out the entrepreneurs. And the one big difference between Brazil and Australia is your population, right? You are a Catholic country, right? So you have a big population. We only have 23 million people here.
Mm-hmm.
So, but the good thing about it is we have our back door, our backyard is Asia. Just Southeast Asia itself, with Indonesia and so on, we already have almost 500 million people, right? So, and then if you include China and India, obviously that we already have like almost two-thirds the world population. So I think this will change, right? As you can see, the Chinese are coming into everywhere in the world, particularly in Australia, because the time zone is only 2 hours difference or 3 hours difference from China. So I think you're seeing money coming in this area. Initially, the Chinese are just coming in to buy the mines and so forth. But I think as things progress, I think they will see that Australia has got a good education standards and so forth, and good technical skills and technical people. I mean, the sad thing to see, if we don't develop the ecosystem for entrepreneurship and innovation, these people, Australian, really qualified Australians, are going to leave the shores of Australia, and that's already happening. If you go to Singapore, you go to US, you find a lot of Australians, top Australians, working in those places. The question is, how do we bring them back?
Okay.
For your Brazilian subscribers and so on, they might be interested to use Australia as a base for them to get into Asia, because Australia still shares the Western world rule of law and protection of IP and so forth, and because of our proximity to Asia, I think it's a good place to actually look at using it leapfrog into the part of the world. And it's a beautiful place to live, particularly the Gold Coast. I mean, Sydney and all might be really expensive. I mean, might not be worthwhile. But the Gold Coast, I love being here now. It's fantastic. I can 30 minutes to the airport, and I can catch a low cost flight to Malaysia, to Singapore, to Japan, to China, and so forth. So it's amazing.
And what's happening in terms of entrepreneurship in, let's say, in Southeast Asia? Let's say you mentioned Malaysia, Singapore. Singapore is known because of, let's say, big investments in science and technology. Big companies have located R&D centers and stuff like that. But what is happening? Say, is there any like a grassroots movement for entrepreneurship in those countries?
There is. But I think Singapore is a bit different. They're targeting the multinational corporations, like you said, the big ones. Malaysia is, I think, trying to do some of that. But I think Malaysians have always been quite entrepreneurial in their outlook. While, like I said, in Singapore, most of the Singaporeans are very well trained in very good universities. But their main mission was to get a good job in a big company. While in Malaysia, due to political reasons and so forth, a lot of Malaysians had to become entrepreneurs, because it was either the government sector, which then had issues in terms of employment if you're not a native Malaysian and so forth. So a lot of Malaysians branched out into Singapore or other parts in the world, or in Malaysia itself, and become entrepreneurs. I don't know whether you know the USB drive is actually invented by a Malaysian in Taiwan. It's, there are a lot of Malaysians are very entrepreneurial and very innovative. Even some really interesting technology comes out of it. Now there is a movement to basically encourage entrepreneurship in Malaysia. So I just came back from giving a TEDx talk at TEDx Youth in Malaysia, with 800 over youth. Very inspiring to see that these youth are not just looking at just making money and going and start a business to make money, but to actually go out and do some social entrepreneurship stuff. Another example I met when I gave a talk at Awesomeness Fest in Bali last year. Kylie Ng and Joel Neo, who started Groupon Malaysia, got bought out by Groupon, and Joel is now the CEO of Groupon all of Asia. He's a Malaysian guy, a young guy, like I think not even 30, I think. So there are a lot of entrepreneurship activities going on there, and the government, I think, in a way, is trying to support it. But you remember that Malaysia has a lot of other successful entrepreneurs already, from traditional property development and all that stuff, who are now putting some money in to create some really amazing product. And that's the thing that's different between, I guess, Australia and Malaysia, or the Western world, right? Because the Malaysians, most of the Malaysian entrepreneurs are more risk, are bigger risk takers. While in Australia, they say that there's no real venture fund in Australia, just long-term money lenders. You want everything to be secure, and you want to have and obviously you and I know that for any successful entrepreneurship activity, you need to be able to accept risk and accept loss, accept failure as a step to progressing to success, right? And in Asia, less so in Malaysia, but maybe more so in Singapore and Japan and maybe Korea. If you fail, it's like a big dishonor, right? Nobody might ever want to fund you again. While in Silicon Valley, you are like, well, it's a badge of honor. It's like, wow, you failed. You started a company and you failed. It's good, man. We want to hire you, or we want you to fund your next project. Yeah, I don't know about Brazil, but over in Asia, it is still a very difficult thing. This guy failed. Oh, I don't know whether I want to fund him again. But in Malaysia, this happened all the time with entrepreneurs who are started out, businesses fail and try again. So they understand that. So they understand the risk. And I think in more ways, they are actually, you find the right person, they're willing to actually roll the dice with you. While in Australia and so on, I find that, people want to analyze and do due diligence. And, sometimes it's too much, right? Because it's a startup, right? It's not like you are investing in, and they want quick results. That's the other thing, right? Startup companies take at least 5 years to see results. And this is the thing that I think that's a challenge that we have to overcome. That, that's why you need to have more, I only have invested about 10 or 11 companies at the moment. But you need about 15, right? Statistically speaking. Out of the 15, you probably only get 1 or 2 that will actually recover back all your losses or your investment in other stuff and so on. And if you're playing on the number game, that's how you would do it. Kylie Ng, actually, the guy I mentioned in Malaysia, he's actually the guy in charge of the 500 startup for Dave McClure's 500 startup for Asia. So, so I met him at Singularity, actually, when I was there, because we were the only Malaysians at the the Black Mansion. Okay. The Black Box Mansion, yeah. So, so he sold off Groupon, and he's sold another startup now. So he seems to be hitting the right way. And so it's good to see a lot of activities going on there. Singapore, yeah, I think obviously there is too, but like I said, a lot of, if you're depending on Singapore, on the government side, that's not really sustainable in the long run, because I don't know about Singapore, but even Australia, when you get a government grant, you spend so much time just doing paperwork,
being compliant with regulation.
Exactly. I mean, the one of the local government here told me that when they give when they give out like a $80,000 grant, it cost them over $1 million. I said, what do you mean? He said, we had to hire somebody to look after this company. We have to go to the audit committee, the finance committee. It doesn't make sense, right? And that's why I thought Vivek's idea for Startup Chile was amazing, right? Give them $40,000, move to Chile for 6 months, and then see what happens, rather than do this long, evaluation and then monitoring and all that. And then, and the company itself can't really do much because they spend all their time with compliance. So, I think,
you can move to Brazil and get $100,000 from Startup Brazil.
Really?
Really? Yeah.
But what's the catch? Is there do they require you to live in Brazil for like a long time, or?
For the time of you need to come to Brazil. You need to be incorporated in Brazil if you incorporate a company. Yeah.
Right.
But so we got companies from the U.S., from Europe, from Israel, from Latin America, and I guess that in the last round, companies from Asia. Yeah.
Well, I guess no company from Australia. So there's an opportunity there. So the companies have invested in like the Arthritis Relief Plus or this, this robot guys, the grass sets, and so on. I think if they want to use Brazil as the ground to, go into Latin American countries, that might be a good place to do it.
Yeah, yeah. Just two final questions here, two curiosities. The first is, we've been seeing lots of things in the Brazilian, let's say, entrepreneurial or startups ecosystem, and we have a kind of a generational issue here in terms of risk taking. Yeah, the traditional mindset for Brazilians is, hey, if you fail, that's a problem. Yeah, this is changing, I think, but this is changing in a certain, let's say, segment of the society. Yeah, young entrepreneurs, let's say, where they're now seeing some examples in the local market who have succeeded, so they have someone to look at as an inspiration. They've been more and more young Brazilians are getting connected with the US, Silicon Valley, getting inspiration from there, etc. Yeah, and that this culture that in some ways being boiled up here, yeah, and it has a lot of inspiration in the US, Silicon Valley way of, let's say, doing things, yeah, and this is being spurred here through things like Startup Weekend, yeah, organizations like Endeavor, yeah, for the connections of Brazilians who went to Silicon Valley and are coming back and stuff like that. How is the same kind of thing? And you mentioned that for Asia, risk taking still is a cultural challenge in some way. How is this kind of thing being transformed in Asia? The same kind of workshops, activities, organizations are present there and are helping the mindset to be changed?
Yes. For example, in Malaysia, I managed to get the Singularity University Global Impact Competition for Malaysia running this year from personal friends of mine who are funding it, and also this company called Mind Valley, which has had a thing called Project Renaissance, where they want to make Malaysia as the hub for startups. So they support activities like Kickstart.my, which is the Malaysian startup scenes, all by volunteers, and they bring in speakers and stuff like that, and try to inspire each other about how they can go about doing their entrepreneurship stuff and things like and some really cool technology that they can implement in their place. Singapore, on the other hand, I don't know whether you know, like 40% of the population now of the 5 million people are expatriates or foreign or people from other countries. So that's happening. So what you see then is a lot of cross pollination of ideas and so forth. I mean, the co-founder of Facebook, right? The Brazilian guy, right?
Yeah, he moved to Singapore.
He's actually based in Singapore. He gave up his American citizenship. He had reasons for it, but tax might be one of the reasons. But anyway, he's based in Singapore, right? So he's very active in that area, and so I think in Singapore. Things are also happening out there in terms of creating entrepreneurship and so forth. And come back to your question about is entrepreneurial skills teachable? Definitely teachable, right? The very basic ones. Whether you want to be an entrepreneur is another thing, but you should definitely have the skills. I think it's just as important as coding as any other basic skills that I think the old days of arithmetic, reading and writing. I mean, why bother writing? We don't even write anymore, right?
Yeah.
So those skills need to be replaced by coding, entrepreneurial skills, communication skills obviously are very important. And that's where I think Asia, particularly places like Malaysia and Singapore, have big advantages because it's a multicultural society. And you got people from all different walks of life and different languages, different religion, and so forth.
This is a challenge that we have. Brazil is a country of immigrants, but that was in the past. We need to connect globally today. We need to have more people coming and going, and this is a challenge for the Brazilian society. And a final question: how did it happen to you to become an entrepreneur?
I get bored easily. Maybe I have attention deficit syndrome. I wanted more challenges. So and I like helping people. And I think if you read my profile, I really think that I want to be a Chinese comedian, right? So, but I do a jolly good Indian accent, as you know. So I can run my own call center. Uh, anyway, but the thing is, I just like the freedom it allow me basically to do and meet a lot of people. And now I actually share my mentoring skills with as many people as I can, particularly companies that I feel I can help. I do my best to help, and that's the thing, right? And I think my background is more like in Buddhism and stuff like that. So I don't really look like, oh well, how much money I'm going to make out of this guy if I mentor him. I don't charge them for things like that, at all, because you believe in karma. I do good, the good comes back somewhere else, and pay forward, right? I do something for you, you do something for somebody else, and the world is a better place. I think it's easier to live with yourself like that too, because if not, then you become a consultant, right? And you always question, what value does a consultant give? So okay, come back to your question of how to become an entrepreneur. Well, it came because I wanted to solve a problem. I wanted to find a way, for example, the SMS stuff, how I could basically send a message that could be that can be sent with some confidence that the person that's supposed to read it is the only one that can read it. And if I'm able to provide the resource, whether it's funding or skill or knowledge, to basically progress humanity, that's what I do. I mean, and that's the thing. I'm really thankful for. That's why I still hold my role as ambassador for Singularity for both Australia and Malaysia. And it's an honorary job, because I want to pay back, right? I mean, I really felt that it gave me a lot in terms of my outlook of how technology could be the salvation to solve a lot of problems that we face nowadays, and also the fact that it changed my whole outlook in investment. Now I look for basically companies that can do they can impact 1 billion people, as you know, and it's highly scalable and so forth. If not, then I just don't waste time on it. There's some exception though. The last investment I did on the game company, that was a friend of mine. Maybe games will bring some laughter and joy to people, but it's an Oculus Rift technology. It's called the Forest, and it has got like the highest 3D rendering and all this stuff on the and that's an interesting foray for me. I just like the model that they had. I think I mentioned it in my talk at Singularity. Where it goes on Steam and you get back 100% of your investment, and then you get less and less as you make more and more money, but the risk is minimal. And when the game is launched, you don't have to wait 5 years to see the results. So I think that's a good model that maybe we should look at for our investment, where you get back your and then you get back your money first, and then you taper off your equity holding in the company as they are more successful, so there's incentive for them to do well.
Okay, great. Okay. Clarence, my really final question. You mentioned that you would be interested in connecting maybe with Brazilian entrepreneurs that could help you in exploring opportunities in the Brazilian market.
Yeah, both. Yeah, definitely.
And, so my question was, would you be willing to connect, maybe mentor, or to just exchange idea with Brazilian entrepreneurs that would be interested in going to the market in Asia and seeing opportunities for their technologies?
Sure. I mean, obviously, it also depends on my on the timing, obviously, but sure. Yeah, definitely at the very least, if they send me an email, I can try and redirect them to the right person. If not, help them personally, because I know a lot of other entrepreneurs in Asia that are looking for deals, right, and are looking to get into Brazil and all that, or might not even thought about it, even though Brazil is a huge market, obviously.
Have you ever come to Brazil?
I've never been there. I'd love to come.
Yeah, you just got an invitation.
Okay. Are you in Rio, or where are you?
I'm based in Brasilia, the capital.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my very good friend, did you meet him, Cristobal? He was in Singularity at GSB 11, my classmate. He was my team.
Oh.
Cristobal Lorio. Yeah, he's originally from Gaucho land, but then now I think he's in Rio.
Me too.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Very good. Small world.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, Roberto. Thanks. And likewise, maybe we should organize. Maybe you can get a bunch of entrepreneurs to come out to Australia, and I'll try and get some of us to go over there. Or maybe we can start something up.
That would be fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, or maybe a trade delegation or something. That would be amazing. I mean, like some of the companies we invested in, maybe they might be interested in just going out there and meet some of your guys and see what kind of business you can do. Or if nothing else, just do a hangout.
Yeah, my chief editor, Diego, for Startupi, has been leading groups that go abroad, mostly to the US, but also to Europe. And that could be maybe an opportunity that I could connect you with him to explore that. Yeah?
Sure, okay.
That's
all right, Roberto.
Yeah.
All right,
Clarence,
seeing you.
Thank you so much.
All right, no problem. Hope that's useful.
Okay.
Talk to you soon.
Okay.
All right.
Bye bye.